In this episode of Forever Spinning, we take a look at one of the most creative and off-the-wall hip-hop albums of the 1990s as we dive into the Pharcyde's Bizzare Ride to the Pharcyde. High school friends Slim Kid 3, Imani, and Booty Brown had been in and out of hip-hop groups both as MCs and as backup dancers for a very long time. These LA kids were different than the other rappers at the time, as they gravitated more towards the absurd and left behind the politics that NWA would cover. They just simply enjoyed rap and the freedom that came with it. They began working with producer Jay Swift and added Fat Lip as their final MC, and the Pharcyde was born. They recorded a demo in 1991 and were quickly scooped up by Delicious Vinyl for a record contract. Mind you, these kids were young, like 18 to 20 young. So the creation of this album comes from yo mama jokes and smoking lots and lots of weed. Despite the turmoil and destruction in southern Los Angeles in the early 90s, these kids were still bright-eyed and adventurous. They wanted to make an album that was fun, but was also still thought-provoking. While it doesn't divulge into the criminal activity or political stances much as their contemporaries were doing at the time, they instead opted for making a record based on self-honesty and growing up. The group recorded the majority of their songs at the Hollywood Sound Studio in LA, but also wrote most of their songs in their South Central home, the Pharcyde Manor. They were influenced by pop culture and music alike. For instance, when they were trying to figure out what to name the group, they had rented a VHS copy of The Doors and had eaten some shrooms. Jim Morrison's message of "break on through to the other side" struck a chord with the boys, and they actually ended up going with the name The Other Side for a very long time. That is, of course, until Imani had come up with the idea of naming themselves The Pharcyde, because they wanted to take this as far as it can go. After a long recording process with Jay Swift on the mixing board, the first of his actual professional career, they had enough music to finally create a full-length LP. And the Bizzare Ride to the Pharcyde was released on November 24th, 1992 on Delicious Vinyl. The first single off Bizzare Ride is the hilarious and raunchy Yo Mama. This track was a spur-of-the-moment creation for the Pharcyde. They wrote this song, well, probably stoned, because they wanted to have a collection of Yo Mama jokes over a beat. There is no real deeper message or themes behind this song. It's just kids that wanted to have fun and forget about their troubles. During the original writing for this track, the guys were actually just jumping on top of their beds in a hotel room shouting out Yo Mama jokes, and that's how this song came to be. Yo Mama didn't chart very well upon its release, and actually it never ended up charting at all. But Yo Mama is still beloved and adored by all generations, although the main generation that appreciates this song the most has to be the ones that got to see this song performed live in its earliest forms. The Pharcyde's most successful single off of Bizzare Ride is Passin' Me By. This is easily their most philosophically driven track on the album, as it discusses potential lovers that just end up passing them by. This was the group's first real exposure, as they were talking about something other than Yo Mama jokes for the first time, and what they were saying on this track was really important. The sung chorus on this track is once again inspired by Jim Morrison, as they were trying to replicate his sing-scream style on many of the Doors tracks. The lyrics on this track are also down-to-earth and modest, the best coming from Slim Kid 3 as he raps, "I guess a twinkle in her eye is just a twinkle in her eye." Each MC lays down a heartfelt verse about being let down or completely dismissed by a crush, and they hit pretty damn hard. This song peaked at number 52 on the Billboard Hot 100 and ranked number 1 on the Hot Rap Singles chart. For Better or For Worse is yet another single that didn't get much radio airplay for the Pharcyde. This track is a bit of a wild ride lyrically, as it opens up with Slim Kid 3 talking about how he's going to be married to a girl named Rima Linda, as then Fat Lip comes in and prank calls a girl and tells her that he is going to go and, quote, hammer and drill her in the head. I can see why the general public didn't necessarily like this track. But in context, this shows the Pharcyde's willingness and ability to take the insane and still make it sound good. If I had to guess, I would imagine that this track is probably about their worries about being in a quote-unquote relationship with the rap industry and the mental gymnastics that they have to pull just to convince themselves that this is a good idea. But in the end, no matter what, they're gonna stick it out for better or for worse. Kanye West has gone on record and said that Bizzare Ride to the Pharcyde is actually his favorite record of all time, and that is some pretty darn high praise from a guy that I would have been convinced that he thinks his own records are the best records to ever be made. And that just says a ton about what the Pharcyde was able to do on this record. They caught lightning in a bottle with some of the most absurd, insane, creative, and most fun songs in the mid-90s. While many of their contemporaries were talking about the horrible things done to the black community in the South Central LA area where the Pharcyde is from, they just decided to go about and kind of make these fun songs to help people forget about their troubles. And while both of these things are incredibly important to both have them addressed and also dismissed at the same time, I really do think that the Pharcyde does one of the best jobs at it. Between their hilarious skits, because I'm telling you right now, Bizzare Ride to the Pharcyde probably has the greatest skits ever written. I mean, one of them is about their drug dealer named Quentin going over to their house and them calling him asking where he is, and you just have to listen to it. It really is good, and it's all a true story. But these guys just had fun. They had things to worry about for sure. I'm sure that they woke up every day and saw things going on outside their very own windows that had them thinking, but instead of really mulling it over, and instead of taking out their anger and aggression or whatever pent-up emotions that they had inside of them out on their rap songs, they decided to take it in a different way and spin it. They decided to have fun with it, be creative with it. They decided to take these things such as liking a girl on Passing Me By and seeing her walk away and your heart being broken, and they made that song fun. Not as fun as some of the other tracks, as it is definitely their most heartfelt on the album, but it does have a bit of a twist to it. It has a bit of shimmering hope in this dark despair. Also, Jay Swift's production on this album is absolutely wonderful. It's a shame what happened to him as time went on, as the Pharcyde and him kind of got in fights together, and eventually the Pharcyde's next record would be produced by a young Jay Dilla, which is also pretty darn cool. But Jay Swift has been going in and out of crack cocaine addiction and still recovering after 20 to 25 years of being on it, and it really is a shame because you can tell after listening to this album, this dude had some real talent. As for the rest of this album, I mean, every single track off this thing is good. Officer is a fantastic political commentary on the state of being a black male in the mid-90s in South Central Los Angeles, which unfortunately still applies to this day. And Pack the Pipe is still a stoner rap anthem that is sung and memorized by weed smokers of all ages. I'm so glad I'm finally making a video on this, and even if this video doesn't get many views, I don't care. I'm glad that I got to do the research on this record because it is such an interesting backstory. Every single person in the Pharcyde has their own unique quirks, and seeing it all come together on this final product, and easily their magnum opus, their greatest record they've ever put out, it's just really cool to see. So, whether you've never heard this record before, or if it is a personal favorite of yours, the Pharcyde's Bizzare Ride to the Pharcyde will always be forever spinning. Thanks for watching.